My name is Lydia Marsh. I am 32 years old, and the year I learned what a cedar chest could do to a family, my grandmother turned 81 on a Sunday in September. She had pressed her good tablecloth the night before. She had arranged gardenias from her garden in a crystal vase. She had set the table for 9. Nobody came. My parents were at a fundraiser in Hilton Head. My brother sent a text at 5:43. "Happy birthday, Gran. Tell me you made the peach cake." My father did not text at all. My mother posted a sunset photograph to her church prayer group with the word grateful underneath it. I drove 2 hours and 40 minutes from Savannah after my shift and found my grandmother sitting alone in her dining room. The candles had burned themselves out. The peach cake that evening stays with me the way certain things stay, pressed into memory like a flower between pages. I had left Savannah at 4 in the afternoon, still in my work clothes, a gas station bouquet of sunflowers on the passenger seat. 2 hours and 40 minutes on I-95, and then the back roads through Beaufort County, where the live oaks hang over the pavement like a green cathedral. I turned into her gravel driveway at 6:50. The porch light was on. Every other window was dark. The dining room told the whole story. 9 place settings, the good china, white with a blue magnolia pattern, that came out only for birthdays and Christmas. A crystal vase with gardenias she had cut that morning. The peach cake at the center of the table, still on the glass stand she had owned since before my mother was born. The candles had burned themselves to stubs in the silver holders. A carton of peach ice cream had melted through its sides onto the pressed tablecloth. She was sitting at the head of the table in her good dress, the blue one, hands folded around a glass of sweet tea, looking at the candle stubs the way you look at something that was supposed to mean something and arrived at an empty room. "Gran." She looked up. Her face moved through something I could not name. "Lydia, is it Sunday?" "It is Sunday. Your birthday." "Oh." She touched the edge of the cake stand. "I thought I was making this for the church social." I put the sunflowers in a mason jar. I cut her a slice of cake and one for myself. We ate at the good china table with our hands because neither of us felt like locating forks. I sang happy birthday twice because halfway through the first, she asked me to start again from the beginning. At 8:30, I walked her to bed. She weighed almost nothing. Her wrist when I took her hand was narrow as a folded letter. As I pulled the quilt up, she caught my fingers, held them. Her eyes sharpened in the way they sometimes did, the way a radio catches a frequency through static. "They think I do not notice," she said. I waited for more. She was already asleep. I should tell you who I am in this family before I tell you what they did. The Marsh family of Savannah is a particular kind of Georgia comfortable. My father, Gerald, managed commercial real estate accounts until he could play golf 4 days a week and call it networking. My mother, Beverly, organized charity events and sat on 3 different boards and kept the family's social calendar the way some people keep financial records, precisely, strategically, with an eye toward what everything would look like from the outside. My brother Carter ran a property development firm, Carter Marsh Properties, and drove a truck that cost more than my annual salary and wore it the way some men wear their names, loudly, as if volume confirmed value. And then there was me, the paralegal. I worked at a 3-person elder law firm in Savannah. Wills, trusts, guardianship filings, power of attorney instruments. I earned $44,000 a year and studied for the bar exam at night at the kitchen table of my 1-bedroom apartment. My family called me the careful one. At holiday dinners, Beverly would tilt her head and say, "Lydia is still doing her little legal assistant work," the way you might say a child was still drawing horses. I did not argue. I read fine print for a living. But this house was mine in every way that mattered, and none of the ways that counted on paper. I had learned to read on its back porch. Frances had taught me to ride a bicycle in the driveway when I was 5. She had co-signed my first apartment lease because my parents thought it was too soon. She had pressed my law school application essays with a red pen at the kitchen table and told me to stop apologizing for my sentences. I slept in the guest room that night, the one with the window that looked out over the garden, and lay awake listening to the house settle around me. Around midnight, I got up for water. On the hallway side table, behind a framed photograph of the family at Easter, I found a business card, Marilyn Cross and Beaumont Realty. On the back in pencil, estimated value $740,000. Quick close available. I put the card back. My hands were steady. My stomach was not. Sunday morning, I cleaned the kitchen while Frances dozed in her chair. The leftover cake went into a container. The melted candle stubs went into the trash. I wiped the good china and stacked it in the cabinet where it would sit until someone came to clear the house someday. That thought landed wrong. I pushed it aside. At 10:15, someone knocked at the front door. 2 people stood on the porch steps. The woman was perhaps 60, silver hair cut close, a wool blazer despite the September heat, leather briefcase. The man beside her was younger, maybe 40, carrying a notary seal in a small case. Lydia Marsh? Yes, my name is Helen Pryor. This is my associate, Marcus Webb. Your grandmother retained my firm 15 months ago. She held out a folder, cream-colored, thick, sealed with a wax paper flap. My grandmother's name printed on the tab in blue ink, her handwriting across the seal. She asked us to deliver this to you personally, Helen said. When the time came for what? Helen glanced through the screen door at the chair where Frances was sleeping. Come to my office when you are ready. She pressed her card into my hand. Do not discuss this with your parents before we speak. They were in their car and moving before I could form another question. I stood on the porch holding the folder. It was heavier than it looked, perhaps 45 pages. The seal had been signed in my grandmother's handwriting, the capital F with its long downward tail, the double loop on the lowercase r. This was not a shaky mark made by someone uncertain. This was signed by a woman who knew exactly what she was sealing and why. My phone buzzed. Beverly, who was at the door. Don't touch anything, Lydia. I turned the phone face down and brought the folder inside. I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where the birthday cake had sat untouched the night before, and ran my finger along the sealed flap. I recognized every curve of her signature. I had been reading signed documents for 6 years. This one I would have known anywhere. I broke the seal. Inside, a stack of legal instruments I recognized from my daily work. A recorded deed, a trust instrument, a durable power of attorney, notarized witness pages, a physician's evaluation letter on medical letterhead. Clipped to the front page, a handwritten note on her personal stationery. Cream paper, blue ink, the same careful, deliberate hand. Lydia, when they come for the house, open this. Everything you need is here. I love you. I'm sorry it has to be you. I am not sorry I chose you. I read it 3 times. Each time the words when they come landed differently. Not if, when, she had known. 15 months ago, before the forgetting became reliable. Before she started calling me by my mother's name. Before the stove left on twice in 1 week, and the morning she could not find her way home from the post office 3 blocks away. She had known someone would come for the house. She had prepared. I closed the folder and pressed my palm flat on top of it. Through the doorway I could hear her breathing. Slow and even. The afternoon light moving across the kitchen floor. She had hired a lawyer. She had signed documents. She had left me instructions. That note did not let me sleep. Monday morning, I called in to work for the first time in 2 years. Something kept me at the house. I found it while taking out the recycling, a realtor's combination lockbox, clamped to the water meter behind the gardenia bushes at the side of the house, tucked just out of sight from the front walk. I knew what it was immediately. I had seen them on listings all over Savannah. Someone had been showing this house. I went back inside and went through Frances's mail pile. 3 weeks of unsorted envelopes on the hallway table. Beneath a phone bill and a grocery circular, I found a listing sheet. Off-market, printed on Cross and Beaumont Realty letterhead. The same Maryland cross from the business card behind the Easter photograph. 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, original heart pine floors, wisteria garden, corner lot, listed at $740,000. $45,000 below the most recent comparable sale in the neighborhood. In the kitchen drawer next to the takeout menus, I found the worst of it. A purchase agreement, unsigned, but filled in, buyer, Tidewater Capital Group LLC, cash offer. 45-day close. The seller's signature line was blank, but someone had penciled F. Caldwell in block letters below it like a rehearsal. The listing agent was Marilyn Cross. The contact on the buyer's side was a name I did not recognize. But the seller's representative listed on the agreement was Carter Marsh. My brother. I sat on the kitchen floor and spread the pages around me. The lockbox photograph I had taken on my phone. The listing sheet. The purchase agreement. Marilyn's business card. A sticky note in Beverly's handwriting. Closing target November 8th. That was 4 weeks away. I picked up Helen Pryor's card from the counter. Then I picked up the folder from the hallway table. This time I opened it to the first page of the trust instrument, and I read every word. Helen Pryor's office was on the second floor of a converted townhouse on Bull Street. The waiting room had wide plank floors and framed diplomas from Georgia law and a small brass plate that read Pryor and Associates. Elder Law and Estate Planning. I had called at 7:30 that morning. Her receptionist put me through in under 2 minutes, which, if you work in law offices, tells you they were expecting the call. Miss Marsh. Helen's voice was the same measured calm from the porch. I am glad you came. Can you be here at 9? I drove downtown. Helen met me in a conference room with sweet tea and a box of tissues she placed exactly between us without comment. Your grandmother came to me 15 months ago, she said. Early June of last year. She had an episode the week before. Got disoriented on her way home from the garden center. Ended up parked on a street she did not recognize. A woman at a pharmacy called her daughter's number from a card in her purse. The daughter brought her home. Frances called me the next morning. She already knew your firm. She had referred 2 friends to us over the years. She came in alone. She was focused, precise. She brought her own folder. Deed to the house. Tax records. Her 1997 will. A list of questions handwritten on yellow legal paper in blue ink. Helen paused. She was scared. Of what? Of exactly what is happening now. Helen set her tea down. She told me, my son will do whatever Beverly tells him, and Beverly will sell the house the minute I am not sharp enough to stop her. She wanted to stop it before the window closed. I put my glass down. She chose you, Miss Marsh. Specifically, she said, Lydia is the only one who will understand what needs doing, and the only one who will do it without asking what she gets out of it. Ruth opened her own copy of the folder. Let me show you what she built. Helen walked me through it piece by piece. 15 months ago, a Tuesday in June, Frances had come to this office in her good slacks and her pearl earrings. She had brought her own documentation, deed, tax history. The 1997 will that left everything to Gerald. A list of handwritten questions about trusts, powers of attorney, and what happened to a person's property when they could no longer legally manage it themselves. She had been methodical, Helen said. She told me she had noticed the forgetting starting 6 months earlier. Names first, then appointments, then routes she had driven for 40 years. Her doctor had used the words early-stage cognitive decline. She said she estimated she had 12 to 18 months of reliable capacity left. She wanted to use them. The legal architecture was clean. I recognized every instrument from my own caseload. Item 1, a revocable living trust. Frances had transferred the house. The deed, the title, into the Frances Eleanor Caldwell Revocable Living Trust, dated June 11th of last year. She was the trustee while she had capacity. I was the successor trustee. If she became legally incapacitated, control of the house passed to me, not to Gerald, not to Carter, to me. Item 2, a durable power of attorney naming me as Frances's agent for all financial and healthcare decisions. The durability clause meant it survived her incapacity. It did not expire when she got sick. It activated. Item 3, a physician's capacity evaluation. Dr. Louise Tanner, Frances's neurologist at Savannah Memorial, had examined her on June 9th and provided a written statement confirming that Frances demonstrated full testamentary capacity. She understood what a trust was. She understood what a power of attorney did. She understood she was placing her home and her savings beyond the reach of anyone except the granddaughter she had chosen. So the house is not hers anymore. Technically correct. The house belongs to the trust. Frances cannot sell it as an individual, and no personal power of attorney over Frances grants authority over assets already held in the trust. Only the trustee can authorize a transaction, and the trustee is me. Once Frances is determined to lack capacity, based on what you have described, Helen said, the successor trustee provisions are almost certainly already active. Then she leaned forward. Miss Marsh, if your family has obtained any newer signatures from your grandmother, a power of attorney, a listing authorization, while she lacked capacity, those documents are likely unenforceable. She let that settle. I think they did. Helen walked me through it piece by piece. 15 months ago, a Tuesday in June, Frances had come to this office in her good slacks and her pearl earrings. She had brought her own documentation, deed, tax history. The 1997 will that left everything to Gerald. A list of handwritten questions about trusts, powers of attorney, and what happened to a person's property when they could no longer legally manage it themselves. She had been methodical, Helen said. She told me she had noticed the forgetting starting 6 months earlier. Names first, then appointments, then routes she had driven for 40 years. Her doctor had used the words early-stage cognitive decline. She said she estimated she had 12 to 18 months of reliable capacity left. She wanted to use them. The legal architecture was clean. I recognized every instrument from my own caseload. Item 1, a revocable living trust. Frances had transferred the house, the deed, the title, into the Frances Eleanor Caldwell Revocable Living Trust, dated June 11th of last year. She was the trustee while she had capacity. I was the successor trustee. If she became legally incapacitated, control of the house passed to me, not to Gerald, not to Carter, to me. Item 2, a durable power of attorney naming me as Frances's agent for all financial and healthcare decisions. The durability clause meant it survived her incapacity. It did not expire when she got sick. It activated. Item 3, a physician's capacity evaluation. Dr. Louise Tanner, Frances's neurologist at Savannah Memorial, had examined her on June 9th and provided a written statement confirming that Frances demonstrated full testamentary capacity. She understood what a trust was. She understood what a power of attorney did. She understood she was placing her home and her savings beyond the reach of anyone except the granddaughter she had chosen. So the house is not hers anymore. Technically correct. The house belongs to the trust. Frances cannot sell it as an individual, and no personal power of attorney over Frances grants authority over assets already held in the trust. Only the trustee can authorize a transaction, and the trustee is me. Once Frances is determined to lack capacity, based on what you have described, Helen said, the successor trustee provisions are almost certainly already active. Then she leaned forward. Miss Marsh, if your family has obtained any newer signatures from your grandmother, a power of attorney, a listing authorization, while she lacked capacity, those documents are likely unenforceable. She let that settle. I think they did. I called Beverly that evening. Oh, Lydia. Her voice had that particular warmth, the one she used on parish volunteers and restaurant hostesses. How is Gran doing? We had the most wonderful weekend in Hilton Head. The weather was just perfect. There is a realtor's lockbox on the water meter, Gran. Silence. 2 seconds. 3. Sweetheart, that is being handled. Your father and Carter have been working with a lovely agent on a suitable arrangement for your grandmother. You know she cannot manage this property on her own anymore. There is a purchase agreement in the kitchen drawer. Lydia. The warmth dropped 1 register. This is a family decision between your father and Carter and me. We have been managing Gran's situation for months. You do not need to involve yourself in the details. She does not know the house is being sold, does she? She knows what she needs to know. I could hear the clink of ice in a glass. Carter's company is in a difficult position. The house can provide your grandmother with proper professional care and help your brother through a serious financial difficulty. It is the responsible thing for this family. It is her house, Beverly, Lydia. Her voice dropped all the way, cold, final. Your grandmother has dementia. She leaves the stove on. She got lost driving 3 blocks. She is not the person who should be making decisions about a $740,000 asset. She paused. Then she said the line. She won't remember the house by Christmas. The phone hummed between us. I looked at the folder on the table, at Frances's signature across the seal. Then, it is a good thing I remember, I said. I hung up. I picked up Helen Pryor's card and the folder. I held them side by side under the kitchen light. Tomorrow I would be back in Helen's office. Tonight I had reading to do. That night I searched the hallway credenza behind a stack of old Southern Living magazines. I found what they had her sign. A power of attorney dated August 19th, barely 7 weeks earlier. It named Gerald Marsh as Frances's agent for all financial and property decisions. Stapled behind it was a listing authorization granting Carter the right to act as seller's representative. I carried both to the kitchen table and laid them beside the originals from Helen's folder. The signature differences were visible before I finished unfolding the pages. Frances's trust documents from 15 months ago. Strong pen pressure, the loops clean and connected. Every letter joining the next with the distinctive long tail on the capital F that I had watched her write my entire life. The woman who had signed birthday cards with a fountain pen for 60 years. The August power of attorney. Trembling lines. The F barely cleared the baseline. The loops had collapsed into hesitation marks. The pen had lifted between letters, leaving gaps where there should have been flow. This was not the hand of a woman who understood what she was signing. This was the hand of a woman who had been guided to a signature line and told to press down. I pulled up the calendar on my phone. August 19th. My stomach dropped. That was the week Frances had been taken to the emergency room after falling in the garden. I had received a text from Beverly. Gran had a little fall. Nothing serious. She is resting comfortably. I had sent flowers. I had not come. The hospital discharge notes, which I found folded inside an envelope in the credenza. Documented patient disoriented upon admission. Intermittent confusion. Recommend neurological follow-up. They had brought a power of attorney to sign during the same week she had been hospitalized for confusion. I photographed everything. Then I called Helen. Helen came to the house on a Thursday, not her office. She said it mattered to do this at Frances's kitchen table. I understood when she laid everything out. The table was old cypress, worn smooth from decades of Sunday dinners and holiday meals. Frances had told me once that every mark on it was a meal she had fed someone she loved. Now it held 5 documents in a row, edges aligned, the way you would lay evidence before a judge. Document 1. The recorded trust deed filed with the Chatham County Clerk on June 14th of last year. The house had been legally transferred into the Frances Eleanor Caldwell Revocable Living Trust 15 months ago. Stamped, indexed, public record. Document 2. The durable power of attorney naming me as Frances's agent. Executed the same day. 2 witnesses. Notarized by Marcus Webb. Document 3. Dr. Tanner's capacity evaluation letter dated June 9th. 2 pages. Clinical and precise. Mrs. Caldwell demonstrates full understanding of the nature and consequences of the legal instruments she is executing. She is oriented to time, place, and person. She articulates clear preferences for the disposition of her assets. Document 4. The August power of attorney naming Gerald. Trembling signature. No capacity evaluation attached. No independent witness. Executed during a week of documented hospitalization for confusion. Document 5. The listing agreement. Carter's name as seller's representative. Marilyn Cross as listing agent. An off-market sale priced $45,000 below comparable value. Helen stood across from me with her hands flat on the cypress table. The house has been in the trust for over a year, she said. Frances cannot sell it as an individual. The August power of attorney, even if it were valid, does not grant authority over trust assets. And it almost certainly is not valid given the medical record from that same week. She looked at me. The sale cannot close. The house was never theirs to sell. I looked at the 2 signatures side by side, one strong, one trembling. And I thought about my grandmother in her good dress at a table set for 9, waiting for people who were already planning what to do with her house. Carter showed up Tuesday. He did not knock. He never knocked. He came through the side door off the garden the way he had since he was 12. Car keys still in his hand, smile already positioned. Hey, Li, he kissed the top of my head. Smelled like the leather interior of a truck that cost too much. Came to check on Gran. That's real sweet. I'm staying for a while. Oh, yeah? He opened the refrigerator and helped himself to a sweet tea and leaned on the counter the way men lean on things they think they own. Taking some time off from the paralegal work. Carter said paralegal the way some people say hobby. Carter. I know about the listing. His tea paused halfway to his mouth. 1 beat, 2, then the smile reclassified itself. Still warm but now working. Look, I know this seems sudden, but here is the thing. The company has a balloon payment coming due in 6 weeks. $840,000. If I miss it, the bank takes everything. Every project. Every contract. 4 years of work. So you are selling Gran's house. I'm helping this family manage an asset Gran cannot manage herself. He set the glass down. Lydia, the money solves everything. Gran gets a beautiful facility. Mama and Daddy stop worrying. I keep my business. Everyone wins! Except Gran. Gran does not know what day it is. She knows people are walking through her kitchen on Thursdays. Carter's jaw tightened. He stepped closer. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. We are family. Is that what you said when you brought her the papers? He stared at me. Then the smile came back. Harder now, flat. It is basically done already, Li. The closing is set. He left his glass on the counter without rinsing it and walked back out the side door. That evening, I searched the credenza behind the magazines and found the power of attorney they had brought her to sign. My father came on a Wednesday. He pulled into the driveway in his old Buick, not the car he drove to church or the club. The one he used for errands, the one nobody would notice. He sat behind the wheel for a long time before getting out. I watched from the kitchen window. His shoulders were curved. He looked smaller than I remembered. He came in through the back door the way he had entered this house since he was a boy. He did not look at me at first. He just stood in the kitchen and looked at the cabinets, the window over the sink, the small crystal prism Frances had hung there in 1989 that threw small rainbows across the floor on sunny mornings. She used to sing in here, he said. His voice was barely above speaking. Old gospel hymns on Sunday mornings, every single Sunday. I remember. He sat at the table. He placed his hands flat on the cypress surface, and I watched them shake. I know what you think of me, he said. I waited. I did not want this. None of it. Carter's in over his head. Beverly says the house is the only solution. And your grandmother? His voice cracked. Just barely. A hairline fracture in something load-bearing. Your grandmother would not want Carter to lose everything. You could still stop this, Dad. He looked at me for 3 seconds. 3 full seconds. I saw the boy who had grown up in this kitchen, who had eaten Sunday dinners at this table, who had been taught to read by the woman now sleeping in the next room. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at it. Beverly. He stood. I should go. He left through the back door. He did not stop to look in on his mother. I washed his glass and put it away. I bought a cake on Thursday. A 6-inch round from the bakery on Whitaker Street. Peach, buttercream. 1 candle, because 81 individual candles seemed like a fire hazard, and I wanted to make her smile. I set it on the kitchen table at 2 in the afternoon. 2 plates, 2 forks, 2 cloth napkins from the drawer she kept for company. Gran, come sit. She shuffled in from the living room, reading glasses on top of her head, a crossword puzzle folded in her cardigan pocket. She saw the cake and stopped. Whose birthday? Yours. We are doing it over. She sat down across from me. I lit the single candle. She looked at the flame the way she looked at things when she was trying to hold them carefully. Like the moment might slip if she was not deliberate about it. Make a wish, Gran. She closed her eyes. She blew. The candle went out on the first try. What did you wish for? She looked at me with those clear creek water eyes. I wished you would stay. We ate cake with forks, real ones. She told me about the wisteria she had planted along the back fence the year I was born. She told me the kitchen table had come from her own grandmother's house in Augusta on the back of a pickup truck in 1961, and that she had refinished it herself 3 times since then, and that every scratch on its surface was a meal she had given to someone who needed one. Then she set her fork down and leaned toward me across the table. Don't let them take the table, she said. Quiet, clear, certain. I won't. Gran. The table stays. She leaned back. Good. She picked up her fork. Because that table has fed more people than this family deserves credit for. 4 weeks until the closing. 3 weeks and 6 days. The calls started Friday. My Aunt Patricia, Beverly's sister, called first. Careful, concerned. Lydia, honey, your mother says you are trying to interfere with the family's arrangements for Frances. She used the word interfering. I held the phone away from my ear. Aunt Patricia, did Beverly mention that she and Carter are attempting to sell Gran's house while Gran has dementia? Silence. She said it was a family decision. It is a decision Gran did not make. Beverly's friend from the garden club called next. Then Carter's business partner. Then a woman from Frances's church who had known her for 30 years. Each call carried the same script, slightly different words. Same architecture. Lydia is overstepping. Lydia is emotional. Lydia does not understand the family's situation. Beverly had done what Beverly always did. She had shaped the story before I had a chance to exist inside it. I did not call anyone back. I did not post anything. I did not try to reframe the narrative. Helen had told me, the documents speak. You don't have to. But on Friday evening, my phone rang one more time. Frances's younger sister, Aunt Dot, 83 years old, still in Augusta, still sharp as a finishing nail. Lydia. Her voice was dry and direct. I do not believe a word Beverly is saying, and I want you to know why. Why Aunt Dot? Because Frances called me last summer, June. She said she had been to see a lawyer. She said she was putting the house in order while she still had time to do it properly. She said, If anything happens, you back Lydia up. She paused. I am backing you up. Whatever you need. 3 weeks until the closing. Helen and I met in her conference room the following Monday. I had 9 days. The closing was set for November 8th at Coastal Title Services on Bull Street. Helen laid out the options. Option 1. File an emergency petition with the probate court to block the sale. Effective but slow. Public. It would give Carter and Beverly time to move Francis. Time to find their own attorney. Time to cloud the record. Option 2. Let the closing happen. Walk in with the documents. Let the truth meet the paperwork. If you appear at the closing with the recorded trust deed and the capacity documentation, Helen said, the title officer will do the work for you. They cannot ensure a title in dispute. They will not close a transaction they cannot clear. The buyer's representative, the listing agent, the title officer, your family, everyone will be in that room. The documents will speak for themselves. She took off her reading glasses and set them on the table. No courtroom, no filing. Just paper on a table in front of witnesses. That is the quieter path. I thought about the note in my grandmother's handwriting. When they come for the house, open this. She had not told me to go to court. She had given me a folder. Let the documents talk, Helen said. 9 days, I went home and started counting. Day 1, I filed a report with Adult Protective Services. I sat in my car outside the Chatham County building and called the state elder abuse line. The intake worker was patient and completely unsurprised. She had heard this before. Different names, same structure. I gave her the facts. An 81-year-old woman with documented dementia. A power of attorney signed during a week of hospitalization. An off-market home sale priced below comparable value. A son named as seller's representative. A daughter-in-law directing the process. We will assign an investigator, she said. I will flag this as time-sensitive given the closing date. I thanked her and hung up. Then I sat in the car for a full minute, watching 2 women walk into the library across the street, arm in arm, laughing about something I could not hear. Safe. Normal. When I got back to the house, a voicemail from Helen was waiting. Lydia? Something interesting. APS told me informally that yours is not the first report on this situation. Someone filed an anonymous complaint approximately 8 weeks ago. They did not leave contact information, but the file exists. 8 weeks ago, right around the time they had brought Francis the August power of attorney. Someone else had seen what was happening. Someone who had not been ready to leave a name but had cared enough to pick up the phone. The file already existed. The system was building. Day 5. Francis was having a clear afternoon. Not a clear day? Those were rare now, but a clear afternoon. She was at the kitchen table working a crossword in pen. No pencil, she always said. Pencils are for people who do not trust themselves. Gran. Tomorrow is going to be a big day. She did not look up. 14 across. Legal instrument of protection. 5 letters. I smiled. Trust. She wrote it in. Smarty pants. I watched her hand. Slow but deliberate. The letters careful. Not the confident loops of 15 months ago. Not the collapse of the August signature. Somewhere between. A woman at the edge of the window, still reaching for the glass. She set the crossword down and looked at me. You are staying. I am staying. She stood slowly and walked to the hallway. I followed. She stopped at the linen closet and opened the door. On the bottom shelf behind, folded blankets, sat a cedar chest I had known my entire life. Small, dark wood. Brass corners, the smell of cedar and lavender and something older underneath. She knelt beside it, which took her longer than it used to, and lifted the lid. Inside, beneath a folded quilt, was an envelope, cream paper, her blue ink, my name on the front, for Lydia, the keeper of the table. She handed it to me. I opened it. A note in her handwriting, shaky but legible, recent. I'm not gone yet. But I am going. I wanted to leave one more thing while I still knew what I was leaving. You are the only one who will know what to do with all of this. Not because you are the careful one, because you are the honest one. There is a difference. Her signature below it, trembling, but intentional, written by a woman who knew she was fading and wanted to leave one more mark while the mark still meant something. She touched the cedar chest. My mother's, she said, came from Augusta in 1961 on the back of a pickup truck with the kitchen table. I tucked the note into my wallet. Tomorrow, the folder. The note? And I would go to the closing together. Coastal Title Services occupied a single-story brick building on Bull Street, 3 blocks from Forsyth Park. I parked across the street at 1:40. Helen pulled in beside me at 1:45. Marcus was already inside. We walked in together. Helen carried her briefcase. I carried the cedar chest folder. Conference room A was small, 8 chairs around a rectangular table. A water pitcher, a printer in the corner. The title officer was a woman named Sandra Pruitt, 24 years in the business. Helen's contact had said thorough and precise. Sandra looked up when we entered, glanced at Helen, and paused 1/2 second, the kind of pause that meant she recognized the name. Ms. Pryor, I did not see your firm listed on this transaction. I represent the Frances Eleanor Caldwell Revocable Living Trust, Sandra said. We have documents relevant to this closing. Sandra's pen stopped. Before she could respond, the door opened behind us. Beverly came in first, pale linen blazer, church pearls, her smile already positioned. The hostess arriving at her own event. Carter followed in a sport coat, jaw set, leather portfolio under one arm. Gerald came behind them, gray-faced, looking at the floor. Marilyn Cross followed. The listing agent, a stack of closing documents held like a winning hand. And last, a man named Dale Whitmore, the buyer's representative from Tidewater Capital Group. Beverly saw me, stopped. Lydia. Her eyes moved to Helen, to the folder in my hands. Her smile did not change, but the muscles underneath it did. What are you doing here? Taking a seat, I said. I sat at the table. Helen sat beside me. I placed the folder in front of me and I waited. The room was very quiet. Sandra looked at Helen. You said you have documents. Helen opened her briefcase. She placed 3 items on the table, one at a time, each one centered and square, the way you place evidence before someone who needs to read it clearly. First, a certified copy of the recorded trust deed. This deed was recorded with the Chatham County Clerk on June 14th of last year. It transfers the property at 4 Whitmore Lane into the Frances Eleanor Caldwell Revocable Living Trust. Miss Marsh, she nodded at me, is the successor trustee. Beverly's smile came down in stages, like a building losing floors one at a time. Second, the durable power of attorney naming me as Frances's agent. Executed June 11th of last year. Notarized, witnessed, currently in effect. Carter leaned forward. We have a more recent power of attorney that's super. Third, Helen placed the physician's letter. A capacity evaluation by Dr. Louise Tanner, Frances's neurologist at Savannah Memorial, dated June 9th of last year. It confirms full testamentary capacity at time of signing. I also have Dr. Tanner's current evaluation completed last week, confirming that Frances now lacks capacity, meaning any documents signed after her cognitive decline began, including the August power of attorney your family obtained during the same week she was hospitalized for confusion, were signed without the legal competence required to make them binding. The room went still in the way rooms go still when something shifts beneath them. Sandra picked up the trust deed. She read it. She compared it to the title report in her file. She looked at Marilyn Cross. Ms. Cross, you represented to this office that the trust had been dissolved and the property returned to Mrs. Caldwell's individual name. Marilyn's face went the color of old paper. I was told that by the seller's representative. The trust was never dissolved, Helen said. The recorded deed confirms it. This property belongs to the trust. The sale cannot proceed. Sandra set the documents down, squared her shoulders, and said the 5 words that ended it. I cannot close this transaction. Beverly stood, her chair scraped, pearls swinging, her voice climbing. Nora is a paralegal. She has no authority. My husband is Frances's son, her only child. He has a signed power of attorney, signed during the same week she was hospitalized for confusion, Helen said, without a capacity evaluation, without independent verification, and even if valid, a personal power of attorney does not grant authority over assets held in a revocable trust. This is my family's decision, Beverly said. Carter stood now too. His voice was not Beverly's performance. It was raw, stripped. I have an $840,000 payment due in 6 weeks. If this falls through, Mr. Marsh. Sandra's voice was level. This office's concern is the integrity of the title. Your financial obligations are not part of that determination. Carter turned to me. His hands were clenched. You are going to destroy this family over a house. I kept my voice exactly where I had practiced it. Conversational, steady. You tried to sell an 81-year-old woman's home while she sat alone on her birthday and ate her own cake. You had her sign documents during a hospital stay. You lied to the title company. You are telling me I am the one doing damage to this family. His mouth opened, closed. Beverly was crying. The real kind or the useful kind? After 32 years, I had stopped being able to tell. After everything I have sacrificed for this family. After everything I have given up. Gerald had not spoken since he entered the room. He sat with both hands on the table, looking at the trust deed. At his mother's signature. The strong one. From 15 months ago, when she had known and had planned and had driven past her only son and gone straight to me. He sat with that for a long time. Dale Whitmore stood. He nodded to Sandra and walked out without a word. Marilyn Cross was already gathering her things. Helen spoke into the quiet. For the record, an Adult Protective Services investigation into the financial exploitation of Francis Caldwell is currently active. The August power of attorney will be formally challenged. Any further attempts to sell, transfer, or encumber trust property without trustee authorization will be treated as a legal matter. Beverly stopped crying. She looked at me with something harder underneath the tears. You will regret this, Lydia, when Carter loses his company, when your father has nowhere to turn, when this family falls apart. You will know you did this. I stood. I picked up the folder and placed it in my bag. I looked at my mother. The linen blazer, the church pearls, the tears she had learned to use like weather. You do not get to decide what she is worth, I said. Then I turned to Sandra. Thank you for your professionalism, Ms. Marsh, Sandra said. I will document this closing as void and flag the file. You will have written confirmation by end of day. I walked out of conference room A. Helen followed. Marcus held the door. The November air in Savannah hit my face warm and damp and alive, and I stood on the sidewalk for 10 full seconds before I remembered to breathe. Helen touched my arm. You did exactly what she asked you to do. That is what I mean, she said. I drove back to Whitmore Lane with the folder on the passenger seat. The same seat where the gas station sunflowers had been 11 days earlier. The house was still there. The wisteria was still along the back fence. The gardenia bushes were still at the side where the lockbox had been. I had had it removed on day 3. I let myself in with the spare key. Frances was asleep in her chair, crossword in her lap, reading glasses on the armrest. I knelt beside her and tucked the quilt around her shoulders. It is done, Gran, I said. The house is safe. She stirred. Her hand found mine in the way it always found mine. Thin, deliberate. Her eyes opened. Cloudy at first, then clearing for just a moment. The way water clears when the wind stops. Lydia, I am here. Did you keep the table? I laughed. A real one. The kind that comes from somewhere below the chest and surprises you on the way out. I kept the table. She smiled. Small. Certain. The smile of a woman who had done something right a long time ago and was glad it had held. Good girl. She closed her eyes. Within a minute, her breathing had slowed and deepened. The crossword rose and fell on her chest. I sat on the floor beside her chair and looked through the doorway at the kitchen. At the cypress table, worn smooth and coffee-stained and scratched from 60 years of Sunday dinners. Still standing where it had stood since 1961. The folder was in my bag. The note was in my wallet. The house was in the trust. And for the first time in 11 days, the counting stopped. The aftermath arrived the way these things arrive. Not all at once, in stages, first week. Carter's balloon payment came due 6 weeks after the closing fell through. He missed it. The bank initiated proceedings on his development projects. 3 unfinished townhomes in Pooler and a commercial parcel in Tybee Island. Carter Marsh Properties filed for Chapter 11 in January. He sold the truck. Last I heard, he was working as a project manager for another firm at 1/3 of his previous income. He did not call to apologize. Beverly's standing in Savannah shifted. Not dramatically, not overnight. Reputations erode the way shorelines erode. Slowly, persistently. The story moved through the garden club, through the church social committee, through Aunt Dot, who talked freely and without apology. Beverly resigned from 2 of her 3 boards by spring. She and Gerald moved to a smaller house in Ardsley Park. My father emailed me once in February. 4 sentences. I have thought about what you said every day. I know what I did and what I did not do. I am sorry for both. I hope you will let me try. I read it 3 times. I did not respond. Not because I did not feel it. because some apologies need time before they become conversations. APS substantiated the complaint. Over 3 months and 2 probate hearings that none of my family contested, the August power of attorney was formally voided. The court confirmed my role as Frances's legal guardian and permanent trustee of her trust. I deferred my bar exam. I took a leave from the firm. I moved into the guest room at 4 Whitmore Lane, the one with the window that looked over the garden, and I became the person who made sure Frances Caldwell ate her meals, took her medication, and sat on the porch in the late afternoons when the light came through the wisteria and turned everything the color of old gold. It was not the career step I had planned. It was the right step. On a Tuesday in April, I baked a peach cake. Nothing elaborate. I set it on the cypress table with 2 plates and 2 forks and the good cloth napkins. Frances came in from the garden. She had been deadheading the gardenias. Her hands were dirty and she did not seem to mind. Whose birthday? Nobody's. It is Tuesday. We are having cake because it is Tuesday. She sat down. She took a bite and closed her eyes. This is my recipe, she said. It is, do not change it. We ate in the kitchen with the afternoon light coming through the window. The crystal prism Frances had hung in 1989 was still there, still throwing small, quiet rainbows across the cypress table. The table held. A person's worth does not expire when their memory does, and the quietest love in a family is sometimes the only one keeping watch. That is my story. 1 empty birthday table, 1 cedar chest, and a grandmother who remembered first. If this reminded you to check on someone you love, do it today. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment. Hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.